Welcome to the Plant Spirit Podcast on connecting with plant consciousness and the healing wisdom of nature. I'm your host, Sarah Artemisia, and I am absolutely delighted to introduce our next guest to the show today. Emma Fitz is a holistic health practitioner and founder of Awaken Your Wild and the Wild Awakening podcast. Emma works in conjunction with Ayurvedic medicine, medical astrology, energy matrix healing, Reiki, and plant-based diet and nutrition to help people create unity and vitality in the body, mind, and spirit. And her methods often involve connecting with the spirit of nature, which of course is my absolute favorite. So Emma, I am so delighted that you were able to join us today.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. I'm so excited to be here. I just feel tingly. I feel like this is going to be amazing.
I was really feeling that so much, so big too. I feel like this is going to be a really juicy convo. And one of the things actually that you just shared recently today that I absolutely loved and resonated very deeply with was an Andy Goldsworthy quote about nature. So I wanted to just start there. And for those of you listening who are not familiar with Andy Goldsworthy, would totally recommend that you check him out, Google Andy Goldsworthy art and just see what he does because he's an incredible earth artist. And so he shared this quote where he said, "We often forget that we are nature. Nature is not something separate from us." And so this, to me, relays such this experience of our connection with nature, obviously, but also there is this baseline understanding that I feel with that about language and this experience of recognizing that we actually, in fact, can speak the language of nature and we can speak the language of the plants. And I know that in your work, you are very connected with this universal language between us and plants. And so I was curious if we could start there and if you could share a little bit about what does it mean to you to have a universal language between us and plants?
No, I love it. This is one of my favorite topics for sure. Yeah, when we get down to it, we are nature. And so when I think so many times, especially in our modern society, our language is a way that, we can connect, but it also is something that's very separating. So, like if I don't speak French, which I do not, I can say bonjour, that's it. If someone's talking to me, I actually don't really know what they're saying unless they, pick up a piece of bread and I'm like, oh yes, baguette. I know what that is. And that's they don't even have to say anything in that. That's that universal language of we understand what that is without actually having to say anything. And I think that is part of that universal language is we get caught up in that mind aspect of language and that we have to interpret things in a way that's really logical and that we can understand in that real, this is what it is. It has to be fit into this box. Otherwise it doesn't fit into my actual physical language that I'll speak. And so that's why I love the universal language is that we can all connect to each other with, just a smile. And everyone understands what a smile is because your energy comes out during that. It's not just, if you put a fake smile, people know. If you put a genuine smile, people know. If you put a really creepy smile, people get that. And so that's what I love. And when we use this in nature, we're part of nature. Our language is that we're actually part of it. We can communicate. And once we sort of step out of that logical head ego mindset of what a language is and step into the ancient heart-based language, this is where that universal language comes in. And that's what I love to drop into when I do any of my work or just, going for a bushwalk or anything like that is that's when we have that deep connection because words aren't necessary. We think of language as words, but in this sense, that ancient version of language, the universal one is all about that feeling and that just deep knowing and the communication that we can have through that. You can look at this up at the sky and I don't have to have the clouds tell me there's a storm about to come because it looks windy and those clouds are really, really dark and I can see some lightning. I know there's a storm and I don't need those clouds or the weatherman to tell me that. And I think when we step back into that real truth within us and that power, it's so empowering when you realize that we're all connected and we can actually have this universal language that's just deep within us. It's the original, it's the OG language. So I think that's cool when we actually step back into that and use it. And, you can just sit with a plant and understand what's happening with it, because you don't have to have that. I mean, I actually do talk to plants, but like you can just have that deep connection and just understand in just sitting there and have a communication, which is what I love.
Love that. And for folks out there who maybe are just getting started with opening up the connection to plants, do you have any tips or practical suggestions for that initial step of deepening into the awareness of understanding the language, or how to read the language of plants or connect with plants in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think my number one thing is something that I do every day. And I know like it gets, thrown away as such a hippie trait, but hugging a tree is one of the best ways I find to build that connection, because it's that real physical, especially if it's a really big tree and, you can wrap your arms around it. That's like your heart full on touches. If you're facing that way, you are touching that tree in that real heart sense, and you can pick up, especially if your face is up against the trunk, you can kind of see if there's little creatures crawling around, what's the bark looking like, and you can even get, does it look a bit dehydrated, is it summer, is it winter, what's happening with this tree, is all the leaves on it, or is it just bursting with flowers because it's spring, and just taking that moment. And so I love, and I tell, a lot of people I work with to just go out and hug a tree, because in that moment, that communication can come through. And the more and more you do it, you actually feel it hug you back. That's what's so beautiful. And you don't have to do it with a tree, you can just sit with a flower, or sit even just and watch the grass. And you just need to slow down, like take some deep breaths, and just, you don't have to, it's not like a meditation. You don't have to sit there and be like, okay, I've got to like clear my mind. It's just being, because your frequency tunes in together. And once you come down, that's the big thing, is if you've been really frazzled, like if you've been on social media all day or running around, or you've just had the most hectic day, sometimes it takes a moment to drop in, because your energy is so frenetic and the pace of nature is so calm and a lot more at a different frequency. So sometimes that's what happens. We kind of miss that communication because we're not on the same wavelength in that moment. So actually you need to come down to nature's level, but it's not like coming down. It's just actually dropping back into yourself, because you are that level. It's just that we get hyped up by modern living.
Totally. I totally feel that, like you're talking about dropping into the wavelength of nature. That's one of my favorite things to do ever. I love it. I love it so much. And it reminds me so much of how we are a reflection of nature, and nature is a reflection of us. And one of my favorite things to do in nature is to drop into this spherical awareness of recognizing that nature is holding up this mirror of wholeness constantly, all the time, always. And when I see myself reflected back in that mirror of wholeness, I can then understand the nature of my own wholeness better. And so I'm curious, in your experience, how is nature a reflection of us? How are we a reflection of her?
I think there's two different little aspects to this. The first one is what I love about nature and the natural world is there's no BS. What you see is what you get. And that's who we are, except we, wear the mask of society and things that just build up over time. But underneath, there's no BS. We are this beautiful light soul. We're part of nature. We are part of the universe. We have this within us. And I think that's the joy, that when you actually drop into that wavelength, you connect and you realize that, there is no you sitting over here in an office that's, in a deadline or has all these crazy relationship dramas and that you're not worthy because of it. When you drop into that moment, all of that disappears, because it's not really part of reality. It's just part of the matrix that keeps us swarming around. But when you drop into the wavelength, all that BS just disappears. And you actually, like, people, like, I know I've had some beautiful clients, and when they've started to do it, they've felt such a deep release, because it's like a moment of just fully feeling held and understood and just seen for who they are at their true level. And sometimes we don't get that in life, because, we're always being reflected to look something different, or you should look a certain way or follow this rule. Whereas nature doesn't do that to us. It just says, you're perfect just the way you are. Thanks for showing up. Let's enjoy this moment. I went and sat by the river the other day, and I loved it, because we all just were there together. Like the water was going, there was a dragonfly near me, there was a gentle breeze, I could hear some cockatoos. And I just sat there, and none of us had to interfere, but we were all in that moment. I didn't have to encourage the water to like flow, or, you know, the dragonfly to fly, and they weren't doing anything to me. We were all just there because we were in our role, but working together silently in that universal language of just being. And I just felt so at peace. And then the second aspect is with our reflection of nature. In Ayurveda, we have the deep understanding that we are individuals, but we are part of the collective. And so we have the real belief of what happens outside is a reflection on inside, and vice versa. And so, you know, even if we look at what's happening in the world right now, it's a reflection of what's happening internally for so many people after so many times. And we're going through this great transformation. And so it looks chaotic on the outside, but that's because inside we are feeling so unsafe, chaotic. There's so much happening within the society foundations that are then within us. And so we're seeing this reflection come up to be healed because, you know, clearly not enough people are doing it on the individual. And so it's come out on the collective to be like, bing, 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 like, look at me, come deal with me. Let's work together and do this dance and work through this. And that's what I'm loving seeing right now is, you know, people are actually starting to tune more into that, which is amazing. Like, you know, if you look at a tree in Ayurveda, we actually every autumn or fall, we do a detox, like a natural detox. And so during this time, we can get a bit of excess heat. We can get really dry, you know, the typical autumn, fall, you know, physical aspects. You know, we can actually see a rise in anxiety during this time because of that drying aspect and a bit of heat. But when you actually look at nature, this is a reflection of what's happening externally as well. So if you look at some trees, they are going through their leaves falling. They are going through their own detox. Like that is what it is when a tree loses its leaves. It's preparing for winter. And so it's actually dispelling, and it collects and then dispels all its toxins. And that's what it dispels out to its leaves. And then the leaves drop and gets rid of it. And so it's just ready for hibernation of winter without all its toxins. We do the exact same thing. We don't lose our hair or anything like that. But like we have that idea of we actually collect and then dispel toxins from our system ready for hibernation over winter. And you can see this reflection and it's just like magical.
Yeah, the microcosm, macrocosm piece here in the Northern Hemisphere right now, we are in fall, going into winter. Are there any practical tips from an Ayurvedic perspective about what we can do to really support that release that you're talking about?
Yeah, definitely. So during this time, taking note of, you know, what kind of foods are in season. That's a major thing that you can do to just help boost yourself. So there'll be specific food that Mother Nature is providing during this time, and they will help you on that energetic and physical level to move through this detox. And then also have a look at, you know, it's obviously cold. So having that aspect, you will build up a little bit of heat within, but you can go the other way and become extremely cold during this time, depending on exactly what your environment is and what your, you know, personal constitution is. And so staying out of wind, you know, doing beautiful oil massages on yourself, doing that real nurturing. You know, if you're going through any kind of detox, if you're running around like a crazy person, it's not going to work as well. And you're going to sort of suffer a bit further down the line because you haven't dispelled things properly. And then to get through winter, you've still got some of those toxins within us. So it's actually taking, you know, a bit of time to just reduce a little bit of your diet so you can have a lot more simpler food, but a bit more warming and grounding. You really want to be grounded during this time. So think heavy things, even, you know, heavy dancing, that real like, you know, stamping your feet, like rooting kind of energy, because we want that to go down. This energy is going to come down. So when we go to a spring cleanse, our energy actually rises up because it's like the whole earth's energy is coming back to life. And that's what we do during a spring cleanse. But during the fall autumn cleanse, we actually, everything dispels down, like the idea of dropping the leaves, things come back. So we need to be grounded. So anything that's grounding in terms of like food, meditation, physical like yoga, Pilates, or any kind of physical like weights can be really good during this time if you like work out with weights, because that's like grounding energy, versus high-paced cardio is something to be avoided during this time because it's going to make you more frenetic like the autumn winds.
Thanks for sharing that. And clearly so much in your work, you work like dancing between the realms of the super spiritual to super embodied, super practical, which I also feel really connected with that, and how it really is just a spectrum of experience all happening simultaneously. And so recognizing that, and particularly because I know from the very moment that you were born, came into this understanding of a holistic way of being is such a huge part of your roots and where you come from. How would you describe the biological impact of our spiritual and physical connection with the plants?
Yeah, well, that's what I love. This is something I've been starting to get even more into recently, because at the beginning, I'm such an energetic based person. So I love all the energy work and like what I call like detective work, like following like, oh, you have this symptom. Oh, your lifestyle links to this. Oh, you have this like trauma. Oh, that's why you have this stomach issue. Like I love all that side of it, which I call like energetic detective work. But going down onto that biological level is so fascinating. You know, having a look at our microbiome and our connection with, you know, even like what's happening around the world in our, you know, our soil versus what's happening with our gut bacteria. They're both in such a state of depletion that no wonder we have like absolute epidemics of nutrient deficiencies and depression, anxiety. We're seeing a rise in, you know, so many chronic disorders. Like I think it's like 1 in 5 kids now have some sort of chronic disorder. And you're like, oh my goodness, like back in the day, like that was unheard of. You might have one kid, like in your class, like when I was in primary school, we had one kid in the entire school who had a severe allergy. And then now you have like, you know, half a class or more, and they all are allergic to something, and not even just peanuts and like your basics. So, you know, they're allergic to asparagus or avocado, things that we not really think of as being allergic to. But if you actually have a look at it, what the soil and the environment that this is being grown in and the energy behind it, it's, you know, there's no love in that growth anymore. It's just, okay, get it in, put it to market, put it on the shelves, keep it in storage. Like there's so much, and then all the chemicals thrown at it. By the time it gets to us, our body doesn't recognize that as food. It's not like we're eating a McDonald's burger or like, you know, some lolly, which is clearly not really very nutrient dense, but we're looking at an avocado. And this is the thing that, you know, should be helping us with these amazing fats and the energy behind it. And our body isn't seeing that as food anymore. That is shocking to me that, you know, we always think of food as medicine, but food is actually becoming part of the problem. And then if that's part of the problem, then what do we do? How do we fix that? And I think that's such part of our evolution moving into the new chapter of Earth, is to heal ourselves, going back to the reflection, you know, inside and outside. We're being destroyed internally, but so is our external. But we can easily reverse this. This is why like nature has so many checks and balances. We have so many checks and balances. So does the earth. You know, otherwise she still wouldn't be here. Neither would humans. I mean, we've been on the earth, you know, for a blip in history, but for us, it seems like a long time. And for the earth, you know, she's been around forever. Like, she's not just going to be like, oh, you put like a few toxins onto my soil. Damn, I'm out of here. Like, she's not going to do that. She's had horrific asteroids and like massive volcano situations when the whole seas became acidic. She'll bounce back. She's fine. And we can do that too. And I love that connection of having that, you know, we can see that the soil, just by doing like, you know, holistic agriculture and actually doing regenerative agriculture to the soil and bringing back that understanding and like that spiritual side into life, that then reflects in us, because not only do we then start eating nutrient dense food again and having the soil, you know, under our fingernails and on our feet, that then is starting to repair our gut lining and our microbiome within our whole body. You know, we're stripping it off all the time, but we can easily reverse this. That's what I just love. Like, we can see that reflection, and it's so beautiful, that communication, that we, you know, love the earth and she loves us, and those checks and balances will come in. Like, we want to move into the next chapter. So We just have to tidy up what we're doing and make some beautiful changes. But that's what it is. You don't just keep eating junk food and then wonder why you're not losing weight. You have to make the change, but the beautifulness of that change is you get what you are looking for in a more vibrant life moving forward.
Love that. Yeah. And that piece that you just brought up about that resiliency is so clear. The earth is incredibly resilient. Plants are incredibly resilient. We are as well. And I know that you work with, clearly you work with so many different tools and modalities to help people connect with that core aspect of the unity, vitality, resiliency of the self. And I know that one of the ways that you also do this is through medical astrology, like going back to that microcosm, macrocosm, even within the self. And so for folks out there who don't know what medical astrology is, because I think this is something so cool, and I love learning about the fact that you work in this realm, can you tell us what is medical astrology and how does it relate to herbs?
Absolutely. So for people who don't know, and I don't judge you if you don't, because a lot of people, I didn't know what this was until like the start of this year. So medical astrology is pretty much what it says. Like, it's actually using the stars and our natal charts, but understanding it from a medical perspective. So, like, for example, I'm an Aries sun. And so most people know what their zodiac is, because we know when we were born, we can read, a little star sign in a magazine or an app. And so we've got a basic understanding. But when you look at it, we have a look at Aries, and Aries rules our head area. So it's all about our head, our physical space. So not our actual brain, but our physical space of our head. It rules our adrenals. It rules our blood. And so then you have a look at who rules Aries. Well, Mars rules Aries. And Mars, the beautiful planet of war, the god of war, we have this incredible passion that comes from Mars. And that's like when you have a look at someone who's like an Aries or has that Aries energy, they lead with their head. They constantly will jump in. They've got that like, oh, I've got to go. I've got that passion, that like ram, but it can come that other side, that god of war, like ramming against like with the horns. They'll come in and charge at you. But you've got this aspect. But then you also look at someone who's going to be using so much energy is going to be using their adrenals, is going to be circulating their blood. And so you can start to see this coming through. And so you look at a whole range of different zodiacs and their rulership and then their placement. So in medical astrology, it's actually really, really old work. It's not something that's, new age and it's just popped onto the market. It's used to be really, really big in actual Western medicine, which I'm sure will be a bit of a surprise to some people. But back in the day, so it was about 300 years ago, it got cut out of Western medicine when they went down a different path. But before that, all the physicians knew astrology, knew medical astrology. They would look at your chart. They would have a look at what's happening in the skies. I actually can't remember who said this, but like a very famous ancient physician who said, like, if you do not understand the planets, if you do not understand the skies, you will never understand health. And I love that because it's that reflection again, that Mars carries heat. It carries passion. It also, rules with iron and that blood. So you can start to see, okay, well, if I'm looking at someone's chart, where is Aries sitting in your natal chart? Where is Mars sitting in your natal chart? We can actually have a bit of a look. Okay, you have, Mars sitting in Cancer. Cancer is a really cold, watery sign, but we have fiery Mars sitting in here. So we can have a look. Is that going to work for you? Mars is, like I said, all about heat. It's that passion, but it's also iron. So then if you have a look at Cancer, depending on where that's sitting, Cancer rules our stomach, our digestion. Is that going to flow properly? Or could we have a look in there? Is there maybe miscommunications in other planets that maybe is causing a iron deficiency in you, and that's coming out through your digestion because it's not absorbing properly? And so we can see straight away, like, how is that, working in your system? And then we can have a look on with beautiful plants and bringing this in. We've probably a lot of us have heard of, planting by the cycles of the planets and the moon and the sun, and working in that for doing that holistic planting, in your garden. But we can also use this for working in with our health and with our plants. So different plants will be connected through their energies and through their vibrancies to different signs and different planets. And so then we can start working with that. So Aries with the adrenals, we're going to go for adrenal, boosting plants. So you're going to go have a look for your ginseng and things like that, your ashwagandha, that is going to like boost up your adrenals and help you in that system. Because if you're depleted, that system in your life is going to be depleted, whether that's physically in medical astrology or even just normal astrology, depending on, it could be in your relationship house. Is that running on too much heat, or is there not enough heat and it's completely in adrenal fatigue? So then you can start to see how this works and bring the beautiful herbs in. And it just, that beautiful language, it knows it's there to help you on that energetic level and that physical level to bring that system back into balance. And so then you're in balance and you can go out and flourish in your life.
Love that. Yeah, so good. So good. And particularly what you're talking about there with again, just coming back, this core theme throughout this whole conversation about the reflections, the inner, the outer, the microcosm, macrocosm. It reminds me also of, there's this quote or this poem written by this 13th century mystic poet. I'm not remembering who it is at the moment, but the first line of the poem is, "When the mind is at peace, the world too is at peace." And just that recognition of, we can seek balance externally, we can seek balance internally, that nature can help us do this both externally and internally, that, the movements of the planets can also help us understand how to do this. The plants can help us understand how to do this. And that we also have this inner wellspring that can help us do this, which I know that you work with very deeply in your work as well. And so much of that is about really connecting with this inner sense of reflective awareness, this inner sense of mindfulness. And I'm curious, in your experience, how does working with mindfulness in our connection with nature and herbs really take us into a space of healing?
I think it's a deep question. It's I think because like we said earlier, with our life being so fast paced, we're so up here, up in our mind. We're constantly on overdrive, working, we're rushing here, rushing there, scrolling, that our whole body is not at peace. We might take a little bit of time to let's drop in for a meditation, or let's collapse in front of the TV. And that's when we find our peace. But we should be in a state of peace most of the time. And I know that sounds so far-fetched, and people I couldn't be in peace. I have to go to my meeting and I have to do this and all this crazy stuff. I've got to exercise, I've got to fit in dinner, all these things. But at our root of who we are, we need to be at a sense of peace, because it's only when we're at connecting to our true self, that's where that deep inner peace and true mindfulness comes from. It's, even if we look at astrology, that medical astrology again, or just general astrology. So I think of Virgo as the mother earth of the zodiac. She's so earthy, she's one of the earth signs, but she's just so beautiful and she's so peaceful. And my mum's a Virgo, and she's the most mum there is, all about giving, all about connecting to the earth, that real simple nourishment. But Virgo is actually ruled by Mercury. And Mercury is our mind. And it's exactly like how you said, Sarah, how our mind and nature, how they connect, having that beautiful connection. And then we can see that literally just sitting there within the zodiac in the 6th house. So it's the balance. So it's pretty much the most grounded part of a chart as well, because it's the 6th, it's the middle. So I always think of Aries as the baby, Pisces as the grandma. And then Virgo is sort of our part where we become the most mature in that sense. And then this is our peak, but it's also the most grounded point. And it's all about our digestion as well. And, that's how we digest life as well. When we're caught up and there's so much chaotic energy, we don't digest what we need to. How often do you, even this morning, I realized I didn't read an email properly. And it was in the first line, this information I needed. but I was so caught up in it and I was like, running, that I didn't actually take that time and that piece to read that properly, because I was already 5 steps ahead. I was already like, oh, I've got to be here, I've got to be there. And I was like, oh my gosh, why would I do that? Like, I totally missed this information. And it was just a beautiful moment that I can be like, okay, let's just take a breath. Let's calm down. If we'd missed this, we actually would have missed that 5 steps ahead anyway. So we need to come back and just be mindful and coming back in space and time. And I think that's it. We always think that we have to be pushing and in control, whereas everything will just happen. I mean, you don't want to just sit back and expect things to just flow to you and do absolutely nothing and lie on the couch. But you want to be in that flow with nature. Like, she will flow within the seasons, and it will be up and down too. It's never like all sunshine. We need rain. We need thunderstorms. We need, in Australia, we always talk about, we have bushfires and flooding rains, which is part of a beautiful poem about Australia. But we constantly have fires. We have fires burning over in the West right now, these big fires going on. And a few years ago, we had them on the East Coast as well. But then we'll have massive floods and they'll come through. And, Mother Nature knows what she's doing. And I think we try to step in and be like, oh, I'll save you, or I'll do this, or if I don't move every single chess piece, nothing will ever happen. And sometimes we just have to drop into that mindfulness and trust, that deep down we can be in that flow. And I think that's just something really special, that once we realize that we don't have to create everything, we can just be part of creation is a beautiful moment.
Beautiful. And such a beautiful reflection of how nature, all of nature is working like that. All of nature is in collaboration with the flow, and how when we also honor that and tune into that in our own life, so much flow arises out of that. And I'm curious, how do plant spirits really support you in your life's work?
So I feel like they're just everything. Like, for me, it's like a reflection of myself again. So it's coming in and finding that true balance and that communication on that universal, like, love language. And, I'm such, like, I will go and just sit in nature. I've been in my front yard having brekkie this morning and just being there, and I just enjoy it with nature. And so I'm enjoying my cup of tea, but I'm watching the bee, collecting pollen, and it's going about its business. But in that moment, we're sharing that beautiful connection. And I feel like I'm giving that everything around me some information, and everything is coming back to me in information. Like, even on that genetic level, all of nature around us is giving us out stress information to help us in our evolution and vitality every day. And I'm doing the same thing. And, we do this as humans too. We give out information. And so I can be like, oh, I didn't sleep well last night. And I mean, I don't say that. It's just coming out genetically. And so the plants and the bee and the birds, they all get this information, and they actually can give that back to me and be like, oh, you didn't sleep well. Here, have a bit of this, have a bit of that, on the actual genetic level, let alone like the spiritual energetics that are coming back of that. Like, here, let me hold space for you. Oh, you're feeling tired? Take a breath. Let's bring in some beautiful, oxygen while you're breathing. Let's have some of this. And I think that's just so incredible. And it's not just a give and take. It's just life. Like, you don't have to think about it. I'm like, here, have some of this and I'll take some of that. It's just naturally happening. Like, we're just in that moment. And this can even be recorded. Like, if you go and give attention to a plant, we can now scientifically see how this plant responds, and it actually helps it grow, and it like has like an emotional reaction to you. And you can see this, we can record this. And so if you think about that, like, so I'm the person who definitely walks down the street, or I'm in my car and I'm like, hey tree, hey this, like, I just shout out little information. I'll be walking and there'll be this, tiny daffodil or like a daisy that's like popped through a crack, or a dandelion, because dandelions are so strong and just pop up everywhere. And I'll just like, hey, how you going? Good job. Like, congratulations for coming up. Like, have a good day. And I just constantly, my walks take forever because I'm just like constantly talking to like every single plant and like bee and all the dogs I walk past. So, but and I feel so refreshed afterwards because it puts me back in that flow and that like communication. And, that's when all the ideas drop in because they're all there, but it's just us that are disconnected. I feel like the plants are always just like, welcome back. Like, welcome back. Like, this is it. And it's never like, mate, you were like gone too long, or no, like you've done 1 minute 2 splits. Like, you can't come back. Like, they're never like that. It's always like, please come back, be part. We're all just one. And I love that. Like, you can see that I think it's just a reflection of, so many even religious texts, spiritual texts, childhood fairy tales. It's that idea of like, we can always come home. And even seeing that in the earth right now, we hear all the time, there's so many issues. This is happening. This is melting, blah, 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 like all this information. But all we need to do is come home and it will help to rebalance. And it's the same within ourselves, all this chronic issues, all these health concerns. We just need to come home. And this, I'm not saying it's going to change a snap of a finger, but it's through that space that those ideas and the flow comes back, and we don't become the kink in the chain. We're just part of the flow again.
Amazing. So powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so tell us, how can people find out more about you and your work?
So I would definitely recommend hopping on my Instagram page. It's called Awaken Your Wild. And my actual website is under a different name. It is linked on the Instagram name, but my website is called Wholesome Living Ayurveda, because that is my clinic name. So, and then I also run the Wild Awakening podcast as well.
Love it. Well, Emma, thank you so much for joining us today. Just absolutely delight and loved connecting with you and hearing about your experience and work and perspective on this amazing reflection of nature and the flow and how we can each be more in flow with nature. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. And just this conversation, I feel like when we talk about it, it just creates so much. And I feel like I'm just going to get off here. I'm going to have so much stuff come through. It's going to be incredible.
Amazing. Thank you. And thanks so much for listening and joining us today on the Plant Spirit Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and please follow to subscribe, leave a review, and look forward to seeing you on the next episode.